The galaxy was dying, not from natural causes, but from the iron grip of the Vrexian Dominion. For 300 years, the insectoid warriors had swept across the stars, crushing every civilization they encountered. Their black ships moved like locusts, consuming world after world, leaving only ash and chains behind. On the mining planet of Tertius 9, thousands of slaves worked under the burning twin suns. They came from dozens of species, all broken by Vrexian cruelty. The overseers walked among them with electro-whips, striking anyone who slowed their pace. Among the slaves was Toron, a thin creature with blue skin and 4 arms. He had been born into slavery and knew nothing else. Far above the planet, in the cold darkness of space, a Vrexian patrol ship drifted through an unexplored sector. Commander Thexal stood on the bridge, his compound eyes scanning the displays. He was bored. Patrol duty was beneath an officer of his rank, but he had angered someone important and now suffered this punishment. "Commander, we have something," said one of his subordinates. "A large object, dead ahead." Thexal clicked his mandibles in interest. "Show me." The main screen flickered to life. There, tumbling slowly in the void, was a massive ship. It was ancient, covered in ice and debris. But what caught Thexal's attention were the markings on its hull. Strange symbols, unlike any language in the Dominion's database. "How long has it been here?" Thexal asked. "Scanning now, Commander. The readings suggest at least several thousand years. The design is primitive, but the hull material is unknown to our systems." Thexal leaned forward. Several thousand years meant this ship predated the Dominion's rise. It might contain lost technology, weapons, or best of all, slaves who could be sold for a fortune. His boredom vanished, replaced by greed. "Prepare a boarding party. I will lead it myself." 20 minutes later, Thexal and 5 warriors stood in the airlock of the mysterious vessel. They had cut through the outer hull easily. The metal was strong but old, weakened by centuries in space. As the inner door opened, cold air rushed out, so frigid it formed crystals in the vacuum. "Atmosphere is present but frozen," reported one of the warriors. "No life signs detected." They moved into the ship with weapons ready. Emergency lights flickered on as they passed, responding to their movement. The corridor was wide and clean, preserved by the cold. Along the walls were symbols and words in that strange language. "Remarkable preservation," Thexal muttered. Whatever this species was, they built well. They found the first chamber 20 meters in. It was enormous, stretching up 3 levels, and it was filled with pods, hundreds of them, arranged in neat rows, each covered in a thick layer of frost. Thexal approached the nearest one and wiped away the ice. Inside was a creature unlike any he had seen. It had smooth skin, hair on its head, and a face that was strangely flat. 2 arms, 2 legs, small and seemingly fragile. The creature's eyes were closed, its face peaceful. "These are stasis pods," said one of the warriors. "This species was traveling somewhere when something went wrong. They have been asleep for millennia." Thexal's mandibles clattered with pleasure. Slaves. Hundreds of them, perfectly preserved. If he could claim this ship, he would be wealthy beyond measure. He would return to favor in the Dominion. "Connect to the ship's systems. I want to know everything about these creatures. And prepare to tow this vessel to Research Station Omega-7. His warriors moved to obey. One of them accessed a terminal, his clawed fingers working across the strange interface. The ship's computer responded, ancient systems waking from long sleep. Data began streaming across screens in that unknown language. Then something unexpected happened. A deep tone echoed through the ship, followed by another, then another. The warriors looked around nervously. "What is that?" Thexal demanded. I do not know, Commander. I only access the basic systems. This appears to be some kind of automatic response. A beacon. Perhaps. Can you shut it off? I am trying, Commander. But the sound continued, growing stronger. Throughout the ship, systems were activating, lights brightened, ventilation units hummed to life, and somewhere deep in the vessel's core, something powerful began to warm up. Commander, the beacon is transmitting on multiple frequencies. It is very powerful. The range is... Commander, this signal could reach halfway across the galaxy. Thexol felt a moment of unease, but he pushed it aside. What did it matter if some signal reached into empty space? This ship was thousands of years old. Its makers were surely extinct. There was no one left to answer. Let it broadcast. By the time anyone notices, this ship will be in Dominion hands. Now secure it for towing. 3 weeks later, the ancient vessel arrived at Research Station Omega-7. The station was a massive facility dedicated to studying conquered species and their technology. Dr. Yulgath, the chief scientist, stood in the docking bay as the mysterious ship was brought inside. Magnificent, he whispered. Simply magnificent. Yulgath had reviewed all the data Thexol had sent. The ship contained several hundred beings in perfect stasis. Their physiology was unremarkable, but their technology showed surprising sophistication for such an old vessel. The language remained undeciphered, but that would change soon. Begin with one pod, Yulgath ordered his team. Let us see what these creatures are. They selected a pod at random and transported it to the main laboratory. Yulgath supervised as his assistants carefully cut away the frost and attached monitoring equipment. The creature inside appeared female, based on their preliminary scans. She looked young and healthy. What species is this? One assistant asked. Unknown. The computer cannot match it to any known race. Perhaps they are extinct. Perhaps they simply lived far from known space. Yulgath paused, studying the sleeping being. In any case, they belong to the Dominion now. Begin the awakening procedure. Far away, beyond the Dominion's borders, in the deep darkness between stars, something stirred. The beacon's signal, traveling at faster-than-light speeds through ancient relay networks, reached out across the void, and in that darkness, other ships drifted. Ships of the same design, carrying the same cargo of sleeping beings. In the cold silence of their cryogenic sleep, the pods began receiving data, location coordinates, a distress code, a warning that one of their number had been found. And slowly, carefully, the ships began to wake their crews. The galaxy had forgotten humanity, but humanity was about to remember itself. The laboratory was cold and filled with strange sounds. Monitors beeped softly as alien machinery hummed around the cryopod. Dr. Yulgath watched carefully as his team worked, their clawed hands moving switches and checking readings. Temperature rising steadily, reported one assistant. Neural activity beginning to show. The subject should wake within minutes. Yulgath felt excitement building in his chest. This was why he loved his work. Every new species brought new discoveries, new knowledge to benefit the Dominion. These strange beings might hold secrets that had been lost for thousands of years. The pod's frost melted away, turning to water that drained through collection tubes. Inside, the female creature's chest began to rise and fall. Her eyes moved beneath closed lids. She was dreaming, perhaps, remembering a world that no longer existed. Then something went wrong. An alarm shrieked through the laboratory. The pod's readings spiked wildly. The creature inside convulsed, her body jerking against the restraints they had placed on her. "What is happening?" Yulgath demanded. "Unknown, Doctor. Her body chemistry is reacting badly to the awakening drugs. Heart rate critical, brain activity extreme. She is..." The pod's front panel exploded outward. The female creature lurched up with a scream that echoed off the laboratory walls. Her eyes snapped open, wild and confused. She saw the Vrexian scientists surrounding her, and her scream turned into something primal, something filled with terror and rage. Hana had no idea where she was. One moment she had been settling into her cryopod on the colony ship, reading the final countdown to sleep. The next, she was surrounded by nightmares. Giant insects with clicking mandibles and too many eyes, all staring at her with cold curiosity. She tried to move, but restraints held her arms and legs. Panic flooded her system. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst. Every instinct screamed danger. "Sedate her!" Yulgath shouted. "Quickly, before she hurts herself!" Two assistants rushed forward with injector tools. Hana saw them coming and fought harder, her muscles straining against the metal bands. One assistant got close enough and pressed the injector against her neck. Darkness rushed in, pulling Hana down. Her last conscious thought was confusion. Where was her ship? Where was her crew? What were these creatures? When she woke again, everything hurt. Her head pounded and her mouth tasted like metal, but she forced herself to stay calm this time. She kept her breathing steady and her eyes closed, listening carefully. She could hear those clicking sounds nearby. The insects were talking, though she could not understand their language. Equipment beeped around her. She was still restrained, still a prisoner. Slowly, carefully, Hana opened her eyes just a crack. She was in some kind of medical facility. The ceiling above was metal and covered with strange lights. To her left, she could see monitors showing what looked like her vital signs. One of the insect creatures noticed she was awake. It approached, and Hana fought to control her fear. The thing was huge, nearly 3 meters tall, with black armor-like skin and mandibles that clicked as it studied her. "Awake now," it said. The words came from a device on its chest, translating its language into something she could understand. "Good. Tell us, creature. What is your species called?" Hana said nothing. Her military training, distant and foggy in her drugged mind, told her to reveal nothing to the enemy. And these things were clearly enemies. The creature clicked in what might have been amusement. "Silent. How predictable. No matter. We will learn everything we need from your ship's computers and from studying your body." It turned away, speaking to others in its own language. Hana used the moment to test her restraints again. They were strong, probably meant for creatures much larger than her. But she noticed something. The band on her right wrist had a slight gap, just a few millimeters. If she could dislocate her thumb, she might be able to slip free. Over the next hours, Hana observed everything. She counted the creatures that came and went. She memorized the layout of the room. She watched how they operated their equipment. And slowly, she began to understand her situation. She was in some kind of research station. Her cryopod had been taken from her ship and brought here. These creatures, whatever they were, seemed to run a vast empire. They treated her like a specimen, like something to be studied and cataloged. But worse than that was what she overheard. Through the translation devices, she caught pieces of conversation. The creatures discussed time periods. They mentioned centuries, thousands of years. Hana felt ice in her stomach. How long had she been asleep? What had happened to Earth? To humanity's colony fleet? Where was everyone? On the third day of her captivity, Hana saw something that gave her hope. One of the creatures had been careless, leaving a datapad near her bed. When the laboratory emptied for a shift change, Hana began working her right hand free. The pain was intense as she forced her thumb backward, feeling ligaments stretch and pop. Tears streamed down her face, but she made no sound. After 10 agonizing minutes, her hand slipped through the restraint. She grabbed the datapad with her free hand and activated it. The interface was alien, but she was an engineer. She understood systems. Within minutes, she had bypassed the security and accessed the station's main computer. What she found broke her heart. The date was Galactic Standard Year 9047. If her calculations were correct, and if this system aligned with Earth's old calendar, approximately 800 years had passed since humanity left Earth. 800 years she had slept while the galaxy moved on without her. She searched desperately for any mention of Earth, of humanity, of her colony fleet. There was nothing. In this empire's vast databases, humans did not exist. They were not even listed as an extinct species. It was as if humanity had vanished completely. But the datapad held other information too. Information about this empire called the Vrexian Dominion, about the worlds they had conquered and the species they had enslaved, about their military strength and their cruel methods. Hana's grief turned to anger. She had not survived 8 centuries of sleep just to become a laboratory specimen for alien tyrants. She found the communication protocols and began typing quickly. Her fingers flew across the unfamiliar interface, adapting and improvising. If her ship's systems were still functional, if the beacon was still transmitting, there might be a way to send a message. She encoded everything she had learned about the Vrexians, their strength, their methods, their cruelty. She included the station's location and a plea for help. Then she sent it on every frequency the ship's ancient transmitters could manage, hoping against hope that someone would hear. Alarms began blaring. Hana had triggered security protocols. She quickly secured her hand back in the restraint and lay still, the datapad carefully placed where she had found it. Yulgath rushed into the laboratory with armed guards. He saw the datapad and immediately understood. His mandibles clattered with anger. "The creature accessed our systems," he snarled. "Impossible. These beings are supposed to be primitive." He approached Hana, studying her with new respect and suspicion. "What did you do, creature? What did you send?" Hana met his compound eyes without fear. "I sent the truth," she said clearly. "Your empire is about to learn what happens when you wake sleeping humans." Yulgath struck her across the face with his foreclaw. "Bold words for a slave, but no matter. Your message went nowhere. There is no one left of your kind to answer." He turned to his guards. "Increase security, and prepare to wake more of them. If one is this troublesome, we need to understand their capabilities before they become a problem." As Yulgath left the laboratory, he felt a strange unease. The creature's confidence disturbed him, but he pushed the feeling aside. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of species. What threat could one extinct race possibly pose? He did not know that far away in the darkness between stars, other ships had received Hana's message. Ships carrying thousands more of these strange, stubborn creatures called humans. And they were waking up angry. The bridge of the UESV Resilience had been silent for 800 years. Now, suddenly, it blazed with light and sound. Emergency protocols activated throughout the massive colony ship, waking key personnel from their frozen sleep. Captain Minho gasped as consciousness returned. His cryopod opened with a hiss and he stumbled forward, catching himself on a nearby railing. Around him, other pods were opening, releasing the ship's command crew. "Report," he managed to say, his voice rough from centuries of sleep. "What happened? Why are we awake?" Lieutenant Jiwan was already at her station, her fingers moving across controls as she accessed the ship's computer. Her face was pale but focused. "Sir, we received a priority distress signal, Level 1 emergency code, from another colony ship." Minho moved to the command chair, forcing his sluggish body to obey. "Which ship? Where?" "Unknown designation, sir. The signal is badly degraded, but the authentication codes are valid. Old Earth military protocols. They are requesting immediate assistance." "Play it." The bridge speakers crackled to life. A woman's voice, strained but clear, spoke in Korean. "This is Engineering Officer Hana of Colony Ship. Static. We have been captured by hostile forces called the Vrexian Dominion. Warning, static, extremely dangerous. They have conquered most of known space. Multiple species enslaved. If anyone receives this message, static, Please respond. We are not alone anymore. Humanity needs to wake up. The message repeated twice more before dissolving into static. The bridge crew stood in shocked silence. Computer, analyze the signal, Minho ordered. Where did it originate? Coordinates locked. Distance approximately 47 light-years from our current position. The signal passed through several ancient relay stations before reaching us. Ji-Won looked up from her console. Sir, there is more. The signal included data about this Vrexian dominion, their military strength, territorial holdings, methods of conquest. Captain, if this information is accurate, we are looking at an empire that controls over 70% of this region of space. Minho felt cold. The colony fleets had left Earth seeking new worlds, hoping to build peaceful settlements far from home. Instead, they had stumbled into a galactic nightmare. How many crew do we have available? He asked. 200 military personnel are being woken now. The civilian population is still in cryo sleep. 50,000 souls, sir. Keep them sleeping. We need to understand the situation first. Minho stood, straightening his uniform. Send a response on the same frequency. Tell them we received their message and are moving to assist. Then plot a course to those coordinates. Sir, with respect, should we not wait? Contact other colony ships? We are one vessel against an entire empire. Minho looked at the young lieutenant. She said humanity needs to wake up, so we wake up, set course, maximum speed, and start working on that signal. If we received it, others might have too. He was right. Across the void, other colony ships were stirring to life. The UESV Harmony, carrying 30,000 colonists, had picked up Hana's message. So had the UESV Pioneer and the UESV Unity. Ships that had drifted in the darkness for centuries, waiting to reach their destinations, now turned toward a new purpose. On Research Station Omega-7, Dr. Yulgath stood before Commander Thexal, mandibles clicking nervously. You told me these creatures were primitive, Thexal said, his voice dangerously quiet. You said they posed no threat. I believe that to be true, Commander, but this female specimen has shown remarkable intelligence. She bypassed our security systems in minutes. No enslaved species has ever done that so quickly. Thexal looked through the observation window at the human called Hana. She sat calmly on her medical bed, those strange forward-facing eyes watching everything. There was no fear in her expression now, only calculation. Wake more of them, Thexal decided. I want to know what makes these creatures so clever. If they have value as slaves or soldiers, we can sell them for a fortune. If they are dangerous, we need to know how to break them. Yes, Commander. We have selected several more pods to open. Should I proceed? Yes, but double the security. I do not want any more surprises. Over the next week, Dr. Yulgath woke 20 more humans. Each awakening was carefully controlled, with armed guards present and heavy sedation ready. But despite the precautions, the humans proved difficult to manage. One male, identified from their ship's records as Deho, had been a soldier. He woke violently, breaking free of his initial restraints and injuring 3 guards before being subdued. Even heavily sedated, he remained dangerous and alert. Another human, a female named Somin, appeared weak and cooperative at first. But Yulgath discovered she had been secretly observing the station's layout, memorizing guard rotations and security protocols. She was not preparing to escape. She was preparing to fight. The humans communicated with each other in their own language, which the Vrexians had not yet fully decoded. They used subtle gestures and expressions that the translation devices could not interpret. They were planning something. Hana watched as more of her fellow colonists were brought into the medical facility. Each time a new human woke, she felt relief mixed with guilt. Relief that she was not alone. Guilt that others were being subjected to this nightmare because of her distress call. But she also felt hope, because these were not just any colonists. The cryopods had been opened in sequence, and the sequence started with the ship's military complement. Daiho was Special Forces. Soman had been a pilot. Others were engineers, medics, communications specialists. The Vrexians had accidentally woken exactly the people humanity needed. On the third night of their captivity, Hana made contact with Daiho. They were kept in separate cells, but the ventilation system carried voices. Speaking softly in Korean, she briefed him on everything she had learned. 800 years, Daiho whispered back. My family, my home, all gone. Maybe, maybe not. I sent a message. If other colony ships survived, they will come. And if they don't? Then we save ourselves. You were Special Forces, right? Can you fight? Daiho was quiet for a moment. I can fight, but against an entire empire? We start small. We learn their weaknesses. We survive. And when the chance comes, we strike hard. You think like a soldier engineer. I think like someone who refuses to die in an alien laboratory. Daiho laughed quietly. Good. I like you. What is your plan? Over the next days, Hana and Daiho coordinated through stolen moments of communication. They brought other humans into their planning. Each person was assessed for skills and assigned roles. They studied the guards, the station layout, the security systems. They discovered something important. The Vrexians were arrogant. They had conquered so many species that they had grown careless. They did not truly see the humans as threats, just interesting specimens. That arrogance would be their downfall. On the 10th day, Jiwon at her station on the Resilience looked up suddenly. Captain, we are receiving multiple signals. More human ships are responding to the distress call. Minho felt his heart lift. How many? At least 5 confirmed, sir, and they are all changing course. We are going to have a fleet. Good. Send them our tactical assessments. We need to coordinate. If there are humans being held prisoner in hostile territory, we are going to get them out. Sir, we are still days away from the coordinates. And we have no idea what military forces we will face. Minho smiled grimly. Then we will improvise. Humans are good at that. Start planning rescue scenarios. Best case, worst case, everything in between. And wake up our combat personnel. Tell them we are going to war. Throughout the Resilience, cryopods opened. Soldiers, pilots, and specialists emerged from 8 centuries of sleep to find themselves immediately needed. There was confusion, grief for the lost time, but also determination. They were military personnel. They had trained for crisis, and this was definitely a crisis. On the station, Hana felt something change in the air. The guards seemed nervous. The scientists moved with urgency. Something was happening. She caught Daiho's eye across the medical facility and nodded slightly. He nodded back. Whatever was coming, they would be ready. Far above the station, space remained empty and dark, but not for much longer. Help was coming. The plan started with a simple mistake. At least, that was what the Vrexians were supposed to think. Soman, the pilot, pretended to have a seizure during her evening medical check. Guards rushed to restrain her while Dr. Yulgath hurried to administer sedatives. In the confusion, no one noticed Daiho slipping his hand through the gap in his cell door and stealing a security pass from a distracted guard's belt. It took 30 seconds. That was all the time they needed. When the night shift took over, Daiho used the stolen pass to override his cell lock. He moved silently through the corridor, his bare feet making no sound on the metal floor. 800 years of cryo-sleep had not dulled his training. If anything, his anger made him sharper. He reached Hana's cell first. She was already awake, waiting. "About time," she whispered. "Had to wait for the shift change. Come on." They moved through the facility, freeing other humans one by one. 20 captives became a force. Daiho organized them quickly, assigning roles based on their skills. Some would secure weapons, others would take the control room. Hana would reach the communications array. "Remember," Deho said quietly, "the Vrexians are bigger and stronger than us. We use speed and surprise, hit hard, move fast, stay together." A young human named Kyung raised his hand. "I have never fought before. I was supposed to be a farmer on the New World." Deho put a hand on his shoulder. "Then fight like a farmer protecting his land. Fight like your life depends on it." "Because it does." They moved as one through the darkened corridors. The first guard they encountered died without making a sound, Deho's stolen blade finding the weak point in his armored neck. The second guard managed to activate an alarm before Soman tackled him from behind. Sirens wailed throughout the station. The element of surprise was gone. "Go, go, go!" Deho shouted. The humans scattered according to plan. Deho led 10 fighters toward the armory. They encountered a squad of Vrexian guards, and the fighting turned brutal. The aliens were stronger and better armed, but the humans fought with desperate creativity. Kyung, the farmer, grabbed a fire extinguisher and sprayed it in a guard's face, blinding him. Salmon used her small size to slide between an alien's legs and trip him. Deho moved like death itself, his stolen blade finding gaps in armor that the Vrexians did not know they had. They reached the armory and blasted the door open. Inside were weapons, Vrexian designs built for creatures much larger than humans. But Hana had studied these weapons during her captivity. She showed the others how to adjust the grips and activate the firing mechanisms. Meanwhile, Hana herself ran toward the communications center with 5 others. They fought past 2 security checkpoints, losing 1 human to enemy fire. The sight of her companion falling, his chest burned through by an energy weapon, nearly broke Hana's resolve. But she kept running. The communications center was defended by 6 guards. Hana's group had only 4 fighters now, armed with stolen weapons they barely understood how to use. The odds were impossible, so they cheated. Bora, a medical officer, used her knowledge of alien biology. She had memorized the location of Vrexian nerve clusters during her captivity. When the guards rushed to stop them, she threw surgical tools with precision, hitting exposed areas of their anatomy. The aliens went down screaming. Hana reached the main console and immediately began working. Her fingers flew across the alien interface, translating years of engineering knowledge into this foreign system. She boosted the signal strength and began broadcasting on every frequency. "This is Hana of Earth. We are escaping Research Station Omega-7. Human ships, if you can hear this, we need immediate extraction. Sending coordinates now." Alarms screamed louder. The station's artificial gravity fluctuated as someone tried to lock down all systems. Hana kept broadcasting, kept sending humanity's location into the void, hoping someone would hear. On the bridge of the Resilience, Jiwan's eyes went wide. "Captain, we are receiving a live transmission. It is her, the engineer from the first message." Minho was out of his chair instantly. "Put it through." Hana's voice filled the bridge, urgent and clear. "Human ships respond. We are under heavy fire. Multiple casualties. If you are out there, please, we need help now." "Respond," Minho ordered. "Tell her the cavalry is coming." "We are still 6 hours away at maximum speed, sir." "Then tell her to hold for 6 hours. Tactical, prepare assault teams. Engineering, I want every ounce of speed you can give me. We are not losing those people." Back on the station, the humans were being pushed back. Vrexian reinforcements poured in from all sections. The aliens had overcome their surprise, and now their superior numbers were telling. Deho's force held the armory, but they were trapped there. Enemy fire kept them pinned down. 3 more humans had fallen, their bodies lying still on the cold floor. The survivors were running out of ammunition. "We cannot hold here," Soman said, her voice tight with fear. "There are too many of them." "We hold until Hana finishes her transmission," Deho replied. "That is the mission." "The mission is going to get us all killed." Deho looked at her, his face hard. "We were already dead. Dead and forgotten in the dark. At least now we die fighting. At least now humanity knows we existed. Commander Thexol stormed onto the command deck, his mandibles clacking with rage. How did this happen? How did primitive slaves overrun my station? The humans are more resourceful than we anticipated, the security chief reported. They fight without regard for their own safety. It is unsettling. They are animals. Crush them. We are trying, Commander, but they have taken positions that are difficult to assault without damaging critical systems. Thexol hissed in frustration. These creatures had humiliated him. First, the message that had somehow reached into deep space. Now, this rebellion. If word got out that humans had successfully resisted Vrexian authority, other slave species might get ideas. Use lethal force. Gas them if you must, but end this now. In the communications center, Hana heard the ventilation system change pitch. She recognized the sound. They were flooding the area with something, probably poison gas. We need to leave, Bora said urgently. Now. Not yet. I am not done. Hana, we are out of time. Hana kept working, her fingers dancing across the controls. She was uploading everything she had learned about the Vrexian Dominion. Military positions, slave worlds, supply routes, weaknesses in their defenses. If she was going to die here, she would make sure humanity inherited every piece of intelligence she had gathered. The gas began seeping in. Bora tore cloth from her uniform and pressed it over Hana's mouth and nose. Breathe through this. We have maybe 2 minutes. Almost done, just need to... The upload completed. Hana slumped back from the console, dizzy from the gas. Okay, now we run. They stumbled out of the communications center into a corridor filled with smoke and gunfire. Somewhere in the chaos, they found Daeho's group fighting their way toward the docking bay. The ship! Daeho shouted over the noise. Our ship is still attached. If we can reach it, we can escape. They ran together, the surviving humans forming a desperate wedge of bodies and weapons. Vrexian guards fell back before their fury, shocked by the ferocity of beings they had thought weak. Kyung, the farmer who had never fought before, dragged a wounded companion while firing a captured weapon one-handed. Somin covered their retreat, her stolen rifle blazing. Bora moved between fallen humans, checking for survivors, refusing to leave anyone behind. They reached the docking bay to find it sealed. Massive blast doors blocked their path. Behind them, Vrexian forces were regrouping for a final assault. We are trapped, Somin said. Hana looked at the control panel for the blast doors. Maybe not. Give me 30 seconds. We do not have 30 seconds. Then buy me time. The humans formed a defensive line. They had maybe a dozen weapons between them and ammunition was running low. Across the bay, 200 Vrexian warriors advanced, energy weapons raised. Daeho checked his rifle. 3 shots left. He looked at his companions, these strangers who had become family in blood and fire. It has been an honor, he said simply. Then the blast doors exploded open. Beyond them sat their ancient colony ship, its weapon systems powered up and blazing. The ship's automated defenses, activated by Hana's remote command, tore into the Vrexian forces with deadly precision. Move! Hana screamed. The humans ran for their ship. Behind them, the station shuddered as more explosions rocked its structure. Hana had not just opened the doors. She had overloaded the station's reactor. They scrambled aboard their vessel as it detached from the station. Through the viewport, they watched Research Station Omega-7 tear itself apart in a cascade of explosions. 17 humans had survived, 17 out of hundreds of pods still on the station. The rest remained frozen, lost in the destruction. Hana sat on the cold deck and wept. You saved us, Daeho said quietly. We are alive because of you. I got them killed. All those people still sleeping. They were already prisoners. You gave them and us a chance. That is more than we had before. On the ship's main screen, a message appeared. The Resilience was 4 hours away. More human ships were converging on their position. Humanity had come home to a dark galaxy, but they had also learned something important. They could fight, they could win, and they would never stop until they were free. The asteroid base had no name, only coordinates. It drifted in a forgotten corner of space where 3 star systems met, far from Vrexian patrol routes. Here, in the cold and dark, humanity began to rebuild itself. 6 months had passed since the escape from Research Station Omega-7. 6 months of learning, planning, and growing stronger. Captain Minho stood in the command center, watching screens that showed 9 human colony ships in various states of awakening. The Resilience had been joined by 8 others. Nearly 500,000 humans were now active, with millions more still sleeping in cryo storage. "We are running out of supplies," Jiwan reported. She had become the unofficial leader of resistance operations, coordinating between ships and planning missions. "Food production is adequate, but we need medical supplies, raw materials, and more weapons." "Then we take them," Minho replied. "What targets has Hyanwu identified?" Hyanwu, their intelligence officer, pulled up a star map. He was young but brilliant, having cracked several Vrexian communication codes in the past months. "3 possibilities, sir. A supply convoy here, a mining operation here, or a small outpost here. The outpost is the safest target but yields the least. The convoy is high risk, high reward." "What about the mining operation?" "Interesting option, sir. It is run mostly by slaves with minimal Vrexian supervision. If we hit it right, we could free the workers and gain allies." Minho nodded. "We need more than supplies. We need friends. What species are enslaved there?" "Multiple species, sir. The records show Keltons, Ruvians, and some smaller groups. They have been enslaved for decades." "Set it up. I want Deho's team ready to go in 3 days." In the training section of the base, Deho worked with 24 humans and aliens, teaching them to fight together. The aliens were escaped slaves who had joined the resistance. They looked strange, working alongside humans, but Deho saw only soldiers. "Again," he commanded. "Faster this time." A human and a 4-armed Kelton ran through a combat drill, covering each other as they moved through a mock corridor. The Kelton's extra limbs gave him advantages in close combat, while the human's smaller size let her slip through tight spaces. "Better," Deho said. "Remember, you are not human or Kelton. You are a team. Use each other's strengths." Toran, the blue-skinned slave who had witnessed Hana's first awakening, watched from the sidelines. He had been freed during a raid 2 months ago and had begged to join the resistance. Now he was learning to fight for the first time in his life. "Do you think we can really win?" he asked Deho quietly. "Against the entire Dominion?" "We do not need to beat the entire Dominion," Deho replied. "We just need to make them afraid. Fear is a weapon, Toran, and we are very good at making our enemies afraid." In the medical section, Bora made a discovery that would change everything. She was studying blood samples, comparing human and alien physiology, when she noticed something remarkable. Human blood contained compounds that could treat several alien diseases. Not cure them, but stabilize patients and boost immune systems. She ran to find Yunji, who had taken on the role of diplomat for the resistance. Yunji was currently negotiating with representatives from a freed colony world, trying to convince them to join the alliance. "You need to see this," Bora said, pulling Yunji away from the meeting. In the laboratory, Bora showed her the data. "Human blood plasma can help heal multiple species. This is huge. We can offer medical aid to slave populations. It gives us leverage." Yunji's mind raced with possibilities. "Can we synthesize it? Mass produce it?" "With the right equipment, yes. We would need volunteers for donations and a proper medical facility." "I will talk to Captain Minho. This changes things, Bora. This makes us valuable beyond just military force." In the engineering section, Hana worked with alien technicians on something she called the Hybrid Project. They were combining human and captured Vrexian technology, creating weapons and systems superior to either alone. Her assistant, a Ruvian named Sek, watched as she rewired a weapon system. "How do you know this will work?" he asked. "I do not," Hana admitted, "but human technology focused on efficiency and adaptability. Vrexian technology focused on raw power. If we combine them correctly, we get the best of both." She activated the weapon and it hummed to life, the energy output reading higher than any standard Vrexian weapon. Sek's eyes widened. "It works. How did you think of this?" "Necessity. We cannot match the Vrexians in numbers or raw strength, so we have to be smarter, more creative. That is what humans do best." Across the base, similar scenes played out. Humans teaching aliens to fight with guerrilla tactics. Aliens teaching humans about galactic politics and trade. Species that had never worked together before now shared meals, told stories, and planned revolution. But not everyone was happy with the progress. In a private meeting, several colony ship captains expressed concerns to Minho. "We came here to build new lives, not fight wars," Captain Tajian of the Unity said. "We have families, children. They deserve peace, not battlefields." "I understand," Minho replied. "But peace is not an option right now. The Vrexians will not let us simply leave. They will hunt us down. Then we run farther, hide better. The galaxy is vast. The galaxy is also full of slaves who need our help. Can we really turn our backs on them?" Captain Isol of the Pioneer spoke up. "Minho is right. I have seen the Vrexian slave worlds. The conditions are horrific. If we have the power to help, we have the responsibility to do so." "At what cost?" Taijin demanded. "How many humans have died already in these raids? 50? 100? When does it stop?" "When the Dominion falls," Minho said quietly. "Or when we are all dead. Those are the only two endings I see." The captains argued for hours, but ultimately agreed to continue supporting the resistance. They had no real choice. The Vrexians had marked humanity as a threat. There would be no peace until one side or the other was defeated. 3 days later, Daiho led a strike team to the mining operation. 20 humans and 15 aliens dropped from orbit in stolen Vrexian landing craft. They hit the guards fast and hard, overwhelming them before they could raise an alarm. The slaves watched in amazement as their captors fell. When Daiho announced they were being freed, many did not believe him. They had been enslaved too long to hope. But one slave, an old Kelton, stepped forward. "You are the humans. We have heard whispers, the species that cannot be broken." "We can be broken," Daiho replied. "We just do not stay broken. Now come on. We have ships waiting. Anyone who wants to join us is welcome. Anyone who wants to go home, we will help with that too." 2,000 slaves were freed that day. Most chose to join the resistance. Word began to spread through the slave networks. Humans were fighting back. Humans were winning. The Vrexian High Command finally took notice. In their Grand Council chamber on the capital world, the Dominion's leaders gathered to discuss the human problem. "They have destroyed 6 facilities, freed 8 slave populations, and stolen supplies worth millions," reported the Supreme Commander. "We can no longer dismiss them as a minor rebellion." "Send the Third Fleet," another commander suggested. "Crush them completely." "We do not know where their base is. They strike and disappear. By the time we respond, they are gone. Then we set a trap. Use a facility as bait. When they attack, we surround and destroy them." The Supreme Commander clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "That might work, but we need something they cannot resist, something worth the risk." "What about a slave processing center? The humans seem motivated by freeing slaves. If we bait them with a large enough prize, they will come." "Do it. Prepare the trap. And when these humans arrive, we will show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Dominion." Back at the Resistance base, Hyunwoo burst into a command meeting waving a data pad. "Sirs, I have intercepted something. There is a massive slave processing center in the Corvin system. Thousands of beings, including captured humans from other colony ships we did not know about." Minho stood up straight. "Humans? Where?" "A colony ship was found 3 months ago. The Vrexians captured it intact. 5,000 humans are being held in the processing center, scheduled for sale to various buyers." The room fell silent. 5,000 humans. Family. People who had slept for centuries only to wake as slaves. "We have to go after them," Hana said. "We cannot leave them there." Ji-won shook her head. "It is too convenient. The timing is suspicious. This information was almost too easy for Hyunwoo to find." "You think it is a trap?" Minho asked. "I know it is a trap, but that does not change anything. Those are our people. We go anyway." "Then we plan for a trap," Daeho said. "We prepare for the worst and hope for the best. That is what soldiers do." Over the next week, the Resistance mobilized every ship and fighter they had. They knew the odds were bad. They knew many would not return. But they also knew they had no choice. Humanity had been asleep for 800 years. They had woken to find themselves alone in a hostile galaxy. But they were alone no longer. They had allies, weapons, and most importantly, they had each other. The Vrexians were about to learn a hard lesson. Humans protect their own. The Corvin system blazed with weapons fire. Dozens of ships, human and alien, fought desperately against the Vrexian Third Fleet. Just as Ji-won had predicted, it was a trap. But the Resistance had walked into it with eyes open, prepared to pay the price for their people. Captain Minho watched from the bridge of the Resilience as fighters weaved between capital ships, exchanging fire at impossible speeds. His ship shuddered as energy weapons struck the hull. "Damage report. Shields at 60%, sir. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 9. We are holding." Minho gripped his command chair. Around him, 8 other colony ships fought alongside smaller vessels they had captured or built. Against them were 40 Vrexian warships, each one designed for conquest and destruction. The odds were 5 to 1, but humanity had learned to fight smart. "Ji-won. Status on the ground team?" Ji-won's face appeared on the screen, tight with concentration. "Daeho has reached the processing center. They are evacuating prisoners now. But the Vrexians have deployed heavy armor. They need more time." "Time is something we do not have. Yuna, how are your fighters doing?" Yuna's voice came through, filled with static and the sound of combat. "We are keeping their interceptors busy, Captain, but we have lost 12 already. These Vrexian pilots are good." "Better than you?" A brief laugh. "Nobody is better than me, sir, but they are trying hard." Yuna led her fighter squadron through a formation of enemy ships, her reflexes enhanced by adrenaline and desperation. Her wingman, a Kelton pilot named Vec, covered her approach as she lined up a shot on a Vrexian cruiser's engines. Targeting... Firing now! Her missiles streaked across space and slammed into the cruiser's rear section. The explosion was beautiful and terrible, but there was no time to admire it. 3 enemy fighters were already on her tail. "Vec, I need help here." "On it. Break left on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." Yuna's fighter spun wildly to the left. Vec came up from below, his weapons blazing. 1 enemy fighter exploded. The other 2 scattered. "Thanks for the save," Yuna panted. "We are even now. You saved me over Tertius 4, remember?" "How could I forget? You crashed into that supply depot." "That was a tactical landing." Despite the danger, despite the death surrounding them, they found moments to be human, to laugh, to live, to remind themselves why they fought. On the surface, Daeho's team moved through the processing center like a storm. The Vrexians had fortified it well, but they had not expected the ferocity of the human assault. Daeho led from the front, his captured rifle speaking death with every shot. "Clear the left corridor," he shouted. "Bora, How many prisoners have we evacuated? 3,000 so far, Bora replied from the medical station. But there are still thousands more in the lower levels, and Captain, many of them cannot walk. They have been here too long, suffered too much. Deho felt rage building in his chest. The processing center was a nightmare. Beings from 100 species crammed into tiny cells, starved and broken. When the human prisoners saw their rescuers, many wept. They had given up hope of ever seeing another human face. "We carry whoever cannot walk," Deho ordered. "Nobody gets left behind." Kyung, the farmer-turned-soldier, appeared at his side. In 6 months, he had transformed from a frightened colonist to a reliable fighter. "Sir, the Vrexians are bringing up heavy armor. We are going to have a problem." "Then we make the problem theirs. Set up the charges Hana gave us. We will bring this whole section down on them if we have to." In orbit, the battle reached a critical point. The Vrexian commander had committed his reserve forces, trying to overwhelm the resistance fleet through sheer numbers. It was working. Human ships were being disabled, their shields failing under concentrated fire. Captain Isol of the Pioneer made a decision. "All power to forward shields, ramming speed." Her crew stared at her. "Captain, we will be destroyed." "Maybe, but we will take that Vrexian carrier with us, and our people on the ground will live. Do it." The Pioneer, already damaged and burning, accelerated toward the largest enemy ship. Vrexian commanders watched in disbelief as the human vessel refused to turn away. They had never seen anything like it. What species sacrificed themselves so willingly? At the last second, the Pioneer's captain and skeleton crew evacuated in escape pods. The ship slammed into the Vrexian carrier at full speed. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface, a new star born from sacrifice. The Vrexian formation broke. The loss of their carrier threw their tactics into chaos. And in that moment of confusion, Jiwan struck. "All ships, execute pattern Omega. Now!" The resistance fleet had been holding back reserves, hidden in the asteroid field nearby. Now those ships emerged, fresh and ready. They hit the confused Vrexian forces from multiple angles, coordinated perfectly by Jiwan's tactical genius. She had studied every battle record they had captured. She understood Vrexian tactics, their strengths and weaknesses, and she knew how to exploit them. Target their command ships, cut off their coordination, make them fight as individuals, not as a fleet. Human and alien captains followed her orders without question. In 6 months, Jiwan had earned their complete trust. When she said attack, they attacked. When she said retreat, they retreated. Her tactical mind had become the Resistance's greatest weapon. The tide of battle shifted. Vrexian ships began breaking formation, trying to protect their commanders instead of pressing their advantage. The processing center evacuation continued, buying precious time. Deho's team fought their way to the lowest level where the newest prisoners were held. Here they found the captured colony ship humans. 5,000 people who had been sleeping peacefully until the Vrexians found them. "Get them to the transports," Deho ordered. "Move!" But the Vrexian heavy armor had arrived, massive war machines, each one standing 10 meters tall, armed with weapons that could level buildings. They advanced through the corridors, crushing everything in their path. "We cannot fight those," Somin said, her face pale. Deho smiled grimly. "No, but we do not have to." He activated the charges Hana had designed. "Everybody out! Now!" The humans and freed slaves ran for the surface transports. Behind them, the charges detonated in sequence, bringing down the entire section of the processing center. The Vrexian armor disappeared under tons of collapsing metal and stone. The last transport lifted off just as the entire facility began to collapse. Deho watched from the pilot seat as the building they had just been in crumbled to dust. Too close. That had been way too close. In orbit, the battle reached its conclusion. The Vrexian Third Fleet, battered and broken, began to retreat. They had lost their carrier, 6 cruisers, and dozens of smaller ships. The Resistance had lost the Pioneer and 3 other vessels, with many more damaged, but they had won. More importantly, they had freed 8,000 slaves, including 5,000 humans. Captain Minho stood on the bridge, exhausted but triumphant. "All ships, form up for jump to hyperspace. We are going home." But Ji-won was studying her displays with a worried expression. "Captain, I am reading Vrexian transmissions. They are broadcasting everything that happened here." "So? Let them tell the galaxy we won." "That is the problem, sir. They are telling the galaxy. Every species now knows that humans can defeat Vrexian fleets. We are not a secret anymore." Minho understood immediately. Secrecy had been one of their advantages. The Vrexians had underestimated them because they were unknown. Now that advantage was gone. "What happens next?" he asked. Now the entire Dominion knows we exist. They will come for us with everything they have." On the Vrexian capital world, the High Command watched recordings of the battle in stunned silence. 40 ships against 9, and the humans had won. How was this possible? "These creatures fight without fear of death," one commander observed. "They sacrifice themselves willingly. How do we combat that?" "We crush them," snarled another. "We find their base and destroy it completely. No survivors, no mercy." But the Supreme Commander was thinking deeper. "No. If we make them martyrs, we make the problem worse. Other slave species will be inspired. We need a different approach." "What do you suggest?" "We show the galaxy that defying the Dominion leads only to destruction. We pick a slave world, one that has remained loyal, and we destroy it anyway. We blame the humans. We turn the galaxy against them." The commanders clicked their approval. It was cruel, but cruelty was what built empires. They did not yet understand. Cruelty was also what destroyed them. Back at the Resistance base, the freed prisoners were processed and given medical care. The humans from the captured colony ships stared in wonder at what their species had built. In just 6 months, humanity had gone from helpless prisoners to a military force that could challenge the Dominion. One young woman approached Hana, who was overseeing repairs to damaged ships. "Are you the engineer? The one who sent the first message?" "I am Hana, yes. I am Nari. I just wanted to say thank you. When I went into cryo sleep, I thought we would wake up on a peaceful colony world. Instead, we woke up as slaves. I thought we would die there." "You did not die, and we are going to make sure no more humans do." "Can we really win? Against an entire empire?" Hana looked at the ships being repaired, at the humans and aliens working together, at the hope in Nari's eyes. "A year ago, I was alone in a laboratory, being studied like an animal. Now we are an alliance of a dozen species with thousands of ships and millions of supporters. So yes, I think we can win. Not because we are stronger, but because we refuse to give up." In the command center, Minho gathered his senior staff. "The Vrexians know about us now. Things are going to get harder. They will come at us with everything they have." "Then we prepare for everything," Daeho said simply. Ji-won pulled up tactical displays. "I have been analyzing their empire's structure. The Dominion is strong, but it has weaknesses. Most of their forces are spread across conquered territories. Their homeworld is actually lightly defended." "Are you suggesting what I think you are suggesting?" Minho asked. "I am saying we have a choice. We can wait for them to find us and destroy us. Or we can take the fight to them, strike at their heart while they are hunting for us at the edges." "That is insane," Hyunwoo said. "Their homeworld will be the most defended place in their empire." "Most defended, yes, but also most arrogant. They have never been attacked at home. They will not expect it." Minho looked around the table at his commanders. These people, who had been colonists and farmers and engineers, had become warriors and leaders. 800 years they had slept. Now they were changing the galaxy. "We vote," he said. "Do we play it safe or do we go for broke?" Everyone raised their hands. They were going to the Rexian homeworld. The resistance fleet divided into two forces. Captain Minho would lead the defensive fleet at their base, expecting the Rexians to attack there. Meanwhile, Ji-won commanded the strike force heading toward the enemy homeworld. It was the biggest gamble humanity had ever taken. Hana stood on the bridge of the flagship she had retrofitted herself. They called it New Hope, a name suggested by the freed prisoners. The ship was a hybrid creation, combining human innovation with captured Vrexian power systems. It was strange-looking but deadly. "How are you feeling?" Ji-won asked her. "Terrified," Hana admitted. "A year ago I was an engineer. Now I am going to attack the capital of an empire that has ruled for centuries. A year ago we were all something else. Now we are what we need to be." The strike force consisted of 15 ships and 3,000 fighters. Against them stood the defenses of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. But they had surprise, determination, and something the Vrexians had never faced before: hope. At the base, Daeho prepared the defenses. Commander Thexal was coming. Hyunwoo's intelligence had confirmed it. The Vrexian officer who had discovered the first human ship now led a fleet of 60 vessels, determined to wipe out the resistance once and for all. "Let him come," Daeho said to his assembled forces. "We have been waiting for this." The base was built into a massive asteroid, honeycombed with tunnels and fortifications. Yuna's fighter squadrons were ready. Ground forces were positioned at every choke point. They could not win through superior firepower, so they would win through superior position and tactics. Kyung approached Daeho, his farming clothes long replaced by combat armor. "Sir, the civilians are secured in the deepest shelters. If we fall, they have enough supplies and ships to evacuate." "We are not going to fall," Daeho replied. "We are going to show these insects what happens when they wake sleeping humans." 3 days later, Thexal's fleet emerged from hyperspace near the base. The Vrexian commander looked at the asteroid with satisfaction. Finally, he would crush these irritating creatures and restore his honor. "All ships, attack formation. Destroy everything." The Vrexian fleet advanced confidently. This would be easy. They were 60 against 9. The humans were trapped in their base with nowhere to run. Then the asteroid opened fire. Weapon emplacements hidden across the surface blazed to life. Missiles and energy beams lanced out, striking Vrexian ships with devastating accuracy. Hana had spent months designing these defenses, placing each weapon for maximum effect. "Evasive maneuvers!" Thexal shrieked. "Return fire!" But the human defenses were too well designed. The asteroid's natural rotation meant weapons kept changing position, making targeting difficult. And every time the Vrexians focused on one section, another section would open fire. Yuna led her fighters out from hidden launch bays. They swarmed the Vrexian capital ships like angry insects, targeting engines and weapons. Her squadron had trained for this exact scenario, practicing the attack pattern hundreds of times. "Stay in pairs," she commanded. "Hit and fade. Do not get into extended fights." The battle became chaos. Vrexian commanders, expecting an easy victory, found themselves fighting for survival. The humans and their allies fought with perfect coordination, each element supporting the others. But the Vrexians had numbers. Slowly, inevitably, they began to overwhelm the defenses. Weapon emplacements were destroyed. Fighter squadrons took losses. The shields protecting the main base began to fail. Daeho watched from the command center as the displays showed their deteriorating situation. They were holding, but barely. How much longer could they last? Far away, Jiwon's strike force dropped out of hyperspace in the Vrexian home system. She had expected heavy resistance. Instead, they found a system almost empty of military vessels. "Where are their defenses?" Hyunwoo asked, confused. At our base, Jiwon realized. They committed everything to destroying us. Their homeworld is vulnerable. The few Vrexian ships present moved to intercept, but they were quickly destroyed. Jiwon's fleet approached the capital world unopposed. Below them was the seat of an empire, the planet from which the Dominion had launched its conquest of the galaxy. Open a channel to the surface, Jiwon ordered. All frequencies. Her face appeared on screens across the planet. Billions of Vrexians looked up to see a human female staring down at them with cold determination. I am Commander Jiwon of the Human Resistance. Your fleets are defeated. Your capital lies defenseless beneath our weapons. We could destroy your world. We could do to you what you have done to hundreds of other species. The Vrexian government chambers erupted in panic. The Supreme Commander watched the human on his screen with disbelief. How had they gotten here? How had they bypassed all defenses? But we will not, Jiwon continued, because we are not you. We offer terms. Complete withdrawal from all conquered territories. Reparations to enslaved species. Dissolution of the Dominion's military forces. Accept these terms and your world survives. Refuse, and we will turn your capital to glass. We do not negotiate with inferior species, the Supreme Commander shouted at his screen. Hana's voice cut in. Then watch this. The New Hope's weapons fired, not at the capital city, but at an empty military installation on the northern continent. The orbital strike was precise and devastating. Where there had been buildings, there was now a crater glowing with heat. That was a demonstration, Jiwon said. The next shot destroys your government complex. You have 5 minutes to decide. In those 5 minutes, the galaxy changed. Messages flew between Vrexian commanders. Thexal, still attacking the human base, received orders to cease fire immediately. He refused at first, consumed by his hatred, but his subordinates overruled him, unwilling to die for one officer's pride. The firing stopped. Across the galaxy, Vrexian forces received the same orders. Stand down. Surrender. The war was over. On the Vrexian homeworld, the Supreme Commander faced the greatest humiliation in Dominion history. We accept your terms. At the base, Daiho watched as Vrexian ships began withdrawing. He could not believe it. They had won. They had actually won. Kyung appeared beside him, bleeding from a wound on his arm, but smiling. Is it really over? I think so. What do we do now? Daiho thought about that. Now we help rebuild. All those worlds that were enslaved, all those species that suffered, we help them recover. That is what humans do. The following months were chaotic. The Dominion collapsed as conquered worlds declared independence. Some former subjects wanted revenge, seeking to destroy Vrexian worlds, but humanity intervened, offering protection to former enemies. We break the cycle, Captain Minho declared in what became known as the Unity Speech. We do not replace one empire with another. We build something new, a galaxy where all species stand equal. Not everyone agreed. Some humans wanted to rule, to take the power they had won through blood and sacrifice, but they were outvoted. Humanity had not fought for domination, they had fought for freedom. Thexal was captured alive during the final battle. He stood trial for his crimes, facing representatives from dozens of species he had oppressed. Hana testified, describing her captivity and the cruelty she had witnessed. "What do you have to say?" the judges asked him. Thexal looked at the gallery filled with humans and aliens working together. "I do not understand you. You won. You could rule the galaxy. Instead, you help your enemies. Why?" Hana answered him. "Because we remember what it was like to be alone and afraid. Because we know that strength without compassion is just cruelty. You taught us that, Commander. You showed us exactly what we do not want to become." Thexal was sentenced to life imprisonment on a rehabilitation colony. Many thought he deserved death. But humanity had decided that the cycle of violence ended with them. 1 year after the first human awakening, representatives from 300 species gathered on a new space station. It was built at the coordinates where humanity had first been discovered, a reminder of how far they had come. Hana stood at the observation deck, watching ships arrive. So many different designs, so many different peoples, all coming together. Beside her stood Daiho, Jiwon, Minho, and dozens of others who had led the resistance. "What should we call this place?" Minho asked. "New Earth," Hana replied. "Because Earth is lost to us. But we can build something better here. Something that includes everyone." The first Galactic Council convened that day. Humans sat alongside former enemies, former slaves, and species from every corner of known space. They argued and debated and slowly, painfully, began to build a new form of government. It was not perfect. There were disagreements, conflicts, even violence at times. But it was better than what had come before. And it was just the beginning. Yuna, now an admiral in the new Galactic Defense Force, watched as mixed species crews trained together. Humans taught tactics, while other species taught technology and culture. They learned from each other, growing stronger through cooperation. Bora's medical research had saved thousands of lives. Her discoveries about human-alien biological compatibility opened new fields of study. Species that had been enemies for generations found common ground through shared science. Hyunwoo's intelligence network had evolved into a diplomatic corps, using information to prevent conflicts rather than fight them. Knowledge, they learned, was more powerful than weapons. Yunji negotiated trade agreements and alliances, building economic ties that made war unprofitable. "We do not need to force peace," she explained. "We just need to make cooperation more valuable than conflict." And through it all, the search for Earth continued. Somewhere in the galaxy, the home world waited. The planet that had given birth to humanity might never be found. But in a way, it did not matter. Because humanity had found something better than a lost world. They had found purpose. 2 years after their awakening, Hana stood before a memorial wall listing the names of humans who had died in the war. Hundreds of names, people who had slept for centuries only to die fighting for freedom. She placed her hand on the wall, feeling the weight of their sacrifice. "We did it," she whispered. "We changed the galaxy. I hope that was worth it." Toran, the former slave who had witnessed Hana's first awakening, joined her. He was now a counselor representing freed peoples. "Worth it? Engineer Hana, before you came, I knew only chains. Now my children will never know slavery. Of course it was worth it." "Your children?" "Yes, 2. They study in the new academy you helped build. They want to be engineers, like you." Hana smiled through her tears. This was why they had fought. Not for glory or power, but for this. For children who would grow up free. That evening, the senior commanders gathered one last time in the original command center. They were all older now, marked by war and responsibility. But they were alive, and the galaxy was better for their efforts. "What do we do now?" Kyung asked. The farmer-turned-soldier had become a teacher, training the next generation of defenders. Minho, now the first Secretary-General of the Galactic Council, smiled. "Now we live, we build, we explore. We do all the things we were supposed to do when we left Earth, just with a few extra friends." "And if someone threatens the peace we built?" Daeho asked. "Then we remind them why humanity earned its reputation. Not because we enjoy fighting, but because we are very, very good at it when necessary." They raised glasses, toasting the fallen and the future. Outside the station, ships from hundreds of worlds moved through space in peace. Trade convoys, exploration vessels, diplomatic missions. The galaxy was alive with possibility. Somewhere in that vast darkness, other human colony ships still drifted, their passengers sleeping peacefully. Eventually, they would wake and find a galaxy changed by the actions of those who woke first. They would find a civilization built on cooperation rather than conquest. And they would find that humanity, once alone and forgotten, had become the glue that held the galaxy together, not through force or fear, but through the simple refusal to give up hope. The sleeping giants had awakened. They had seen a dark galaxy and brought light to it. They had found themselves outnumbered, outgunned, and forgotten. And they had won anyway, because that is what humans do.